Discovering Your Soul Signature, a 33-day path to purpose, passion, and joy. The first step to reading this book was to figure out what a soul signature was. So I read the introduction and found out that it's actually what your purpose is in life. I also read in the introduction that if you don't have any self-encouragement or love for who you are, you'll never find your soul signature. So as a side project, I decided to buy myself a journal, and every night before bed, I would fill it with encouraging thoughts, quotes, lyrics, etc. Basically anything that would make me feel happier so I could find my soul signature. We hold on to fear because we're afraid that something greater is not in its way. So we need to have the courage, which is found not in the absence of fear, but in the willingness to feel the fear and move forward anyway. Fear keeps the sadness locked in place by preventing us from ever addressing, honestly and authentically, the fact that we don't want to feel our own broken hearts. But instead of being ashamed of our sadness, we should embrace it, because the ability to be sad is a blessing. We occasionally suppress our anger because we are afraid of our anger's effect. But the only way our anger can become destructive is when we take it out on somebody else. So it started off as resentment, and it escalated into frustration, and it turned into anger, and if you don't express it, it will become rage. And rage, we don't have control over. They say that guilt is a scar that remains on you for as long as it takes for you to forgive yourself. But in order to be happy and to live a happy life, you have to forgive yourself and love yourself for your scars and everything. And by loving yourself this way, you are loving all who you have ever wounded in the same ways, by not saying sorry or not making up for your wrongdoings. Shame is different from guilt in the sense that shame is the things that we don't want to admit. Guilt we will admit because we want acceptance, but shame is the stuff that we refuse to talk about and say out loud. And the only way to change that and to stop ourselves from feeling that awful shame is to be vulnerable about it and admit to our guiltiness. Self-judgment is a mental affliction. Through every self-judgment, people are living in their own private hell every single day. The doorway out of judgment is acceptance. Acceptance serves as a bridge between the mind and the heart. When we accept ourselves instead of internalizing circumstances and opinions that have nothing to do with the reality of who we are, once again the underlying energy is able to flow. But when we judge ourselves, we lock that energy into place. When we recognize patterns in our life, we either try to change them or break them completely. But we assume that habits and patterns are the same thing. Habits are everyday, normal functionalities, like whether or not we put water on our toothbrush before or after we put the toothpaste on. But patterns are more intense forms of life, like falling in love with the same guy, or having the same fight with our mom or significant other over and over and over again. When we realize what our patterns are, instead of breaking them, we should choose differently or more courageously and more lovingly. In order to implement choosing differently in my life, I started a new project. So every day when I walked into my room, there's this giant blank wall, and I always wanted to do something like paint it or hang a big picture on it. But instead, I decided to fill it with encouraging things similar to some of the things that were written in my book, but in picture form. I figured that the pictures of the book were getting incredibly boring, so I decided to change it up a bit. So for addiction, addiction is basically distractions. So anything you use in your life to distract you from your feelings. So I decided to kind of figure out what my distraction was from my feelings. So I thought, when do I feel the most? Well, usually that's at night before I go to bed, when I overthink about things like the big math test tomorrow and how scared and stressed and emotionally drained and physically drained and tired and all these emotions just like flush through my head all because of a math test. Well, that's usually when I pick up a book and start to read, and I probably read on average of like 4 or 5 books a month, which is not a bad thing, but it's not really a good emotionally healthy thing. So I decided to limit myself to 1 book a month, and that would be my self-help book, by the way. But instead of picking up a book at night, if I couldn't sleep, now I would just sit in bed and feel my emotions. So, I decided for the next couple weeks I was just going to lump together my project so that it wasn't multiple clips of every single day. So this week was all about like self-love and self-encouragement, things like that. And it was basically about surrendering yourself, surrendering your soul to loving yourself. And one of the chapters was titled "I'm Not Good Enough," and I just wanted to share a little story that in 3rd grade, there's this girl on the playground. She told me that the reason why my parents got a divorce is because of me. And ever since then, I've believed that I wasn't good enough. And in 8th grade, I wound up in a mental hospital because of self-harm. And I really haven't talked about it until now, but now that I'm graduating, I won't see really any of you again, so whatever. But the chapter after I'm Not Good Enough was triggers, and that chapter basically talked about things that will make you believe that you're not good enough. Like, one of my triggers is when I see someone prettier than me, or when I get jealous, when I see like another girl hug Austin or something, and that's one of my triggers, and it taught me to not be jealous. And like, my soul signature, like, I was put on this earth for a reason, and I might not know that reason yet, but I'm here right now and I'm living, and that's a blessing, and I should be grateful for that. And so normally I would apologize for my ugliness right now because I just got off of work and I'm tired, but I'm working on my self-help project, my self-love project. So I love myself and I'm beautiful just the way I am. Okay, so this week was finding ways to dig deeper into not loving yourself, but how do I word this? Individuality, in the sense that we are all individuals and we all come together in harmony. So harmony, everyone has their own issues and their own problems, and I know that Miss H has talked a lot about this, and even if you saw like Calvin Terrell or you're in the 4 Club or whatever, but everyone's going through something of their own, and you should never put anyone down or say something mean to anybody, or even just like give someone a hard time, or even if you're having a bad day, like, don't reflect that on the outside to make someone else have a bad day, because like, you never know what someone's going through. So it was all about like having harmony, finding the truth, and only using the truth, and not in the sense like always telling the truth. I mean, like, yes, you should always tell the truth, but I mean like looking deep inside yourself and like realize like are you being you, or are you hiding behind a mask? And one of the other things that they talked about was being transparent. And, like, be vulnerable, be open, be honest, and let everybody in. And I know a lot of people say, like, don't let anybody in because they're only going to hurt you. But honestly, like, people are going to end up hurting you anyway in one way or another. So, like I was in the last video, like, I just told you all, like, my biggest issue in my life. And I'm not saying you have to go around, like, to random strangers and, like, tell people that you're, like, going through all this crazy emotional crap, but be open with your friends and, like, be vulnerable and tell somebody if you're hurting, or allow yourself to feel emotions and tell somebody, like, hey, that wasn't okay, like, or hey, that made me really angry, or hey, that made me really sad. And at the same time, be grateful when somebody does the same thing for you. Don't get annoyed because someone's venting to you about their problems or whatever. Be thankful that they came to you and they trusted you to be able to talk to you. And I think that in the end, like, we're all not in it for ourselves, but we're all just trying to save ourselves in the end. But sometimes you can't save yourselves, and you're going to need to rely on somebody else. And somebody else would need someone to rely on, you. And you don't know that. So, oh gosh, I guess what I'm trying to say here is like, be open and honest and loving and caring and grateful to other people, and you'll receive the same on your end, if that makes sense. Okay, so what I grasped or took out of my 33-day journey was 3 things, and that's to be the change, be the instrument, and love. So be the change. My book talked about, like, opening up, being vulnerable, changing your patterns, loving yourself more, doing all these things to embrace yourself as a human. And I think that as humans, we should take what Gandhi once said and be the change you wish to see in the world. And I know, like, people always say that, like, they never, like, do it or whatever, but honestly, like, we're all human, we're all trying to survive here, and we're all trying to, like, in the end, we're all gonna die, but we're just trying to make it to the point where we're happy. And we have to respect each other enough to know that everybody wants to achieve happiness in one way or another. And we ought to help each other get there. So be the change. Second is be the instrument. And I'm extremely spiritual. I'm sorry if this offends anybody, for if they're not spiritual, but be the instrument. So God sent us all in for single purposes or multiple purposes or whatever, but we all have a purpose in our life. And I feel like every person has the purpose of being the messenger of God for somebody. And whether that be a musician being the messenger for somebody who's struggling and singing lyrics that are so emotionally, like, magnetic to somebody. I feel like you gotta help other people, and, like, I can't stress enough, but, like, people are going through their own crap, and, like, you never know who's going through what. So you have to be the instrument. You have to be the person that God sent you down here to be. And I don't know, you just embrace that you were here for a reason, and embrace that you have a purpose, and everybody has a purpose. And the third thing is to love. I know I've said it a million times, but everybody's got their own issues, and the easiest thing out of these 3 steps is just to love. Just be vulnerable and be open and be honest with other people and just love each other, because we all need a little love sometimes.